So I'm sure you've been aware that there is a genocide going on in Gaza, in Palestine, by the Israeli military, by the Israeli government. That is a non-negotiable fact. And today we're going to be looking at TikTok trends that has happened in Israel surrounding this genocide, as well as TikToks that have been posted on the Israeli side of like social media online to give an insight as to how Israeli citizens think about what's going on in Gaza. A couple of things that I was going to start out with first before we get into those videos. There's going to be a bunch of comments being like, oh, condemn Hamas, condemn Hamas. First of all, before you want to talk about Hamas, look at this article right here. There's other articles on this, but you can look at this one from The Intercept. I will put the link in the description. It is about how Israel funded Hamas in the 1990s to fight against the PLO. PLO was a Palestine Liberation Group that was going to become the government in Gaza. And it was a largely peaceful movement, a largely peaceful government that was going to be propped up. But Israel don't like that because they need a justification for their crimes. So they funded the most militant faction in the region, gave them supplies, whatever they needed. And that is how Hamas rose to power and became the most influential group in the region. Israel funded Hamas because they need a conflict. They need a justification. I personally think that any loss of civilian life is a tragedy. And I'm not trying to imply that it is a just whatever. This video is not about the history of Palestine. It's not about the history of the Nakba. It's not about any of that. What it is, it's about attitudes of Israeli civilians in this current moment. This first one right now is a Israeli influencer who posted this video mocking the fact that Palestinians don't have food or electricity or water because the Israeli government denied them that access. Look at this. That video goes on for another 30 seconds. And the entire joke is that while Gaza is being bombed, while they don't have electricity, while they don't have clean water, while they don't have food, while they don't have medicine, he do, because he lives in Israel. And we have this collection of videos, which I will show a few of them. You know what that's supposed to specifically reference? What specific actions it's supposed to reference is that the Israeli military will force Palestinian hostages to sing like Israeli children's songs because they think it's funny. They make them like sing and dance for them because they think it's funny. And I know, because I just mentioned hostages, that there is going to be comments in this video right now where people's like, well, Hamas took hostages. Well, first of all, if you want to talk about like hostages, 60 of those hostages so far, and the number has probably increased since the last time I saw that news, since I saw that statistic, has been killed by the Israeli bombings. Israel has killed its own civilians in Gaza because they just bomb indiscriminately. And number two, the news don't talk about the fact that before October 7th, Israel had 500 Palestinian hostages already, not to mention the occupation they hold over the West Bank and Gaza. And this video right here is a TikTok made by an Israeli citizen to demonstrate Israeli life while Israel commits a genocide.
Day in my life, we're at War Edition. After hearing that there was a major lack of gluten-free, celiac-safe food at army bases across the country, we got together with a gluten-free bakery in Jerusalem to make sure those soldiers got fed.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Well, people in Gaza, while Palestinians don't have food, water, electricity, medicine, the citizens in Israel is worried about not having gluten-free bread. Which I understand that's a food condition, but there's other things you can do, like rice or whatever the fuck. Like, that's not the priority, I would think. If the vast majority of Israeli citizens was truly in any danger, like, would the gluten-free bread be like the thing that you worry about the most? Next, we have this Israeli influencer who has dressed up as a Palestinian Muslim woman and is now mocking her. Did you see that? She puts on makeup to look like she has been bombed. She has dust and rubble on her, that she's holding her infant child. Because that's funny. Because that's funny, apparently. Like, not only is this just incredibly disrespectful, racist towards Palestinians. But it also shows you an insight on how bigotry, as in racism, and fascist ideologies rob the humanity of the people who hold those beliefs. Because these ideologies change the way you think to where you think it's okay to mock people who suffer, to mock people who have it harder than you. Because all of a sudden, it's justified because they's lesser than. Do you see what I mean? Do you see how messed up that is? Like, unequivocally evil that is. This video right here is an Israeli soldier, a member of the Israeli military, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. Look at how he talks about the genocide.
Me and my friends conquered Bet Laia and El Tatra and Sulatin, and we're moving on and we're going to conquer the rest of Gaza.
He's sitting there recording and gloating that they conquered territory, that they stole land from Palestinians. And then he goes on to say that he's going to do that to the rest of Gaza. See, right there, that is the intended goal. It's not about Hamas. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's about taking the land. It's just the same reason that Israel funded Hamas. Why they gave them the opportunity and the resources to take control of Gaza, because they need justification to roll in with their military. Israel funded Hamas knowing that eventually Hamas would take violent action against Israeli civilians, because they need Israeli civilians to die. They need to sacrifice their own people, the people of their state, to die so they can take more land and have it be justified internationally. The state of Israel is not good for Israeli citizens because they don't care about them. Here's another video of Israeli soldiers. The video goes on, he keeps chanting, occupy, cleanse, and settle. Because the goal is not to wipe out a terrorist organization or whatever. The goal is to occupy the land, to settle there, and ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. Because I don't know if you know this, but in the West Bank, where there's no Hamas, there is no Hamas in the West Bank. And that is an occupied territory where Palestinians live. Not only has Israeli military bombed them, not as much, but they has, but also in that area, it is an apartheid. Like, even just looking past Gaza, there are streets that you can only go on if you're Israeli. You can't use certain public facilities if you're Palestinian. You can't go into other cities. You have to stay where you're at. You have to stay. You can't visit Tel Aviv. You can't visit Jerusalem unless you have like these permits. And they don't really give you the permits if you're Palestinian. We have an apartheid power here whose citizens is mocking the genocide their government is committing, who is mocking the victims of that genocide. And then you see their military talk about conquering the lands, talk about occupying it, cleansing it, ethnically cleansing it, and then settling there. This is not a conflict. This is not a war. What it is a genocide. A genocide is with the intended purpose to take the land and settle it and control it. I have friends whose family from Palestine. I know people whose grandparents had to flee. Another one of my friends, her mother had to flee. I don't know how you can justify this. There's no justification. If you can, donate to different causes, show up, protest. I've been going. Just like, call your representatives, whoever. It's evil. It's messed up. It's not acceptable in any capacity. Just do what's right. Like, be there when you can. Post stuff online, because actually posting on stuff online do have an impact, because it changes public perception, especially in the countries like the United States where we give so much aid to Israel. It helps. It do. Just remember that.